The night was still, the moonlight spilling like silver paint across the wide Texas plains. Then came the sound, trucks growling down a dirt road, headlights slicing the darkness, laughter too cruel and too loud for such a peaceful place. They weren't here to help, or even to scare. They were here to break. What those boys didn't know was that the farmhouse they targeted belonged to Ruth Callahan, 72 years old, gray-haired, and frail-looking to anyone who judged by appearances. What they didn't see in the old woman's hands, though, was the steady calm of a legend. Ruth had once been more than just a rancher. Decades ago, she had been the quiet ghost on battlefields overseas, the sniper who could steady her rifle through chaos and fear, saving lives from distances that seemed impossible. Her name had never made the papers. Her medals sat in a dusty drawer, unseen by most. And after years of service, she had traded silence and shadows for cattle, sunrise chores, and the simple peace of growing her own food. But trouble had a way of finding her, even in the quiet corners of the world. The men who stormed onto her land weren't soldiers. They were locals, young and reckless, led by a bully named Travis who liked to throw his weight around. Times had been hard, and they blamed Ruth for not sharing her land, for refusing to sell her cattle cheap, for standing firm while others bent. Tonight, fueled by anger and beer, they came to teach her a lesson. They kicked her gate wide open. They broke her fence posts. One of them shouted that she should get out while she could. Another laughed, saying the old lady should be hiding in her rocking chair. Inside, Ruth set down her teacup without a sound. She moved slowly to the corner of her room, where an old trunk waited. Within it lay a rifle, clean and oiled, though untouched for years. She lifted it with hands that remembered every weight, every click, every breath. Her heart did not race. Instead, a steady calm washed over her. She wasn't about to kill anyone, this wasn't war, but she knew that sometimes you had to show wolves why they shouldn't come near the sheep. She slipped out the back door, boots soft on the dirt. The men didn't hear her at first. They were too busy pulling apart her barn doors, shouting, stomping, throwing hay to the wind like it was a game. Ruth knelt in the shadows of an old oak, lined up her sights, and with a single squeeze of the trigger, shattered the beer bottle right out of Travis's hand. The crack of the shot echoed like thunder, freezing the men in their tracks. Silence fell. One of them muttered, "What the hell was that?" Then another bottle exploded near their feet, fragments sparkling in the moonlight. They dropped their tools. Their bravado leaked out as quickly as their courage. Ruth stepped into the glow of a truck's headlights, her silhouette framed against the night. The rifle rested easily against her shoulder. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply said, "This is my land. You leave now, and you don't come back. Ever." For a long second, no one moved. Then, like boys caught by their mother, they shuffled back toward their trucks. Travis tried to spit one last insult, but Ruth's eyes locked on his, sharp and unwavering, and he faltered. They drove away with their tails tucked, engines whining down the road, their laughter replaced by silence. But Ruth didn't just go back inside that night. She knew fear could drive men to do worse. She spent the following days repairing her fences, but she also went into town, something she hadn't done much since her husband passed. She told her story, piece by piece, to neighbors and to the sheriff, who had often been too lenient on boys like Travis. People listened. They remembered Ruth as the quiet widow who raised cattle alone, but now they saw the steel beneath her gentleness. When the bullies tried again, this time in the daylight with loud words but no weapons, the community stood with her. Farmers, storekeepers, even the preacher, all lined up at her fence. They'd had enough of seeing the strong prey on the weak. Travis and his gang weren't so bold when they saw they were outnumbered. They left for good after that, their bravado broken. For Ruth, it wasn't about revenge. It was about respect, about showing that no matter your age or your past, you had the right to stand your ground. That night on her porch, she looked at the horizon with quiet pride. She hadn't fired to kill, only to protect, and in doing so, she'd reminded her town, and herself, that strength isn't always in muscles or youth. Sometimes it lies in courage, patience, and a steady hand when the world shakes around you. The ranch stayed quiet after that. Ruth went back to her cattle, her mornings filled with coffee and sunrises. But her story spread, whispered first and then spoken aloud, until it became something more than a tale of fear. It became a reminder that bullies thrive only when the good stay silent, and that even in the twilight of life, a steady soul can inspire an entire town to stand tall. And so, an old woman who once carried a rifle for her country carried it once more, not to fight a war overseas, but to defend her own home. Her message lingered long after the echoes of that single gunshot faded: you are never too old, too tired, or too small to stand up against those who would take what isn't theirs. Courage does not age. It only waits.